Alright, now what do I have to do? Press arrows in time with the beat? Is that how we convince them? Oh, new music. There was no one else inside the carriage at the time, so it has to have been him. I trust the driver. He has an excellent memory, it seems. 4 passengers with fares totaling 20 pence. Stuck the chap next to him, just like this. Brazen, I must say. Absolutely brazen. I have simply typed and collated all the statements made thus far and drawn the logical conclusion. You can trust the guild. Fair fares is our motto. We haven't raised our prices above 4 pence for years. Dun dun dun! Oh my gosh. Am I actually on Sesame Street? Is that in the wall? Is that a hidden camera? Am I on candid Sesame Street camera right now teaching kids how to multiply 4 by 4? Oh gosh. The scoundrel stabbing that poor man on the floor. It beggars belief. Stabbing him on the floor? What? Starting to wish I hadn't pushed for this now. Some of the jurors don't seem to have wonderfully formed arguments, though, do they? Well, let's see what we can do. We need to get these 6 people to change their minds. I'll have to throw everything I can at them and use some very persuasive language. Just a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. According to my book, that's not quite how it works. Oh? I thought I was going to have to thaw their icy minds with some heartwarming rhetoric about the defendant. Unfortunately, once the jurors have decided the defendant is guilty, they're unlikely to heed anything the defense says. But then they've reached their conclusions by their own reasoning, you see. Your pleas will sound like excuses. In fact, it could recoil on you. The more you try to persuade them, the more entrenched they may become. Then what on earth am I supposed to do? Oh dear. I'm just citing what I've read about British law, Mr. Naruhodo. Right, I'm sorry. Do you have any idea how to make this work, then? Well, from what I can understand, the key to this procedure is using the jurors' own words to make your arguments. What do you mean? Well, the 6 members of the jury are randomly selected members of the public. They may appear to present a united front, but the truth is, they are complete strangers who just happen to find themselves here in the courtroom together. And that's the way to break them down, you mean? Yes, exactly. We must listen very carefully to what each member of the jury says and see if we can identify any contradictory statements. If we can then contrast the statements and pit the corresponding jurors against each other. Okay, so the guy saying he was stabbed like this is going to contradict the woman saying he was stabbed on the floor. So it's contradictions in what 2 or more jurors say that we're looking for. In a way, then, this is similar to a regular cross-examination. Oh, yes, I suppose you're right. Jury fight. Find contradictions in their statements and pit the jurors against one another to break them down. Alright, I might be able to pull this off. No, that's not right. I have to pull this off. Can we start proceedings, counsel? I would ask that you take the stand for this. I'm expecting a clear and concise rebuttal. I'm taking the stand? Okay. Reasonable. That's how it works in real court. I also have a sword. That's how it works in real court, too. So, I don't know if it's bad for me to press. Let me real quick. Does it say on here the price? It does not. I'm going to try pressing and see, do I lose a hit point or what? But does his ability to recall his takings that night really tell us how trustworthy the man is? I manage all his lordship's cash affairs, so I'm very particular when it comes to accounts. I see. A single penny can mean the difference between life and death, after all, can't it? That's a saying in your country? My point is, a man who minds his figures is a man you can trust. Those of us in service would swear to that, sir. Does that bench really need any more polishing? So if the good driver says he saw Mr. McGildy in the act, I don't doubt him. The only task left to do today is disposing of the rubbish. Wait a minute. One of the other jurors mentioned something about money, I think. Now would be a very good time to listen. Okay, yes. You notice an inconsistency? Okay, yes. I should expose it? Yes. Pit them against each other? Yes. See if I can do just that. The omnibus fairman and the... I would imagine, yeah, whoever the last two are, the typer lady and the other guy, probably... Oops. Oh, you can't click the... I keep forgetting. You can't click the arrow. You have to hit the... You have to use left and right. We just need to find two jurors with contradictory statements and pit them against each other. I know. Okay. Okay. I know. This is just a recap, because I went all the way through. Down. What? No. Not right now. Busy lawyering. If I have to rely on advice right from the start, how will I... Oh, she's voicing him. No, I need to work this out for myself now. Is that perhaps what you were just thinking? How did you know? Do you watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Well, that kind of attitude is most admirable, Mr. Naruhodo. I know what I have to do. Let's listen to those.
Objection!
Those two statements clearly contradict each other. They do? Explain yourself, counsel. Me? Oh dear, what have I said? Swear on Silverblaze's mane and name, I haven't the first idea what you're talking about. According to the group testimony we've heard so far, we're giving them the pace. There were 4 passengers on the omnibus on the night in question, and according to the coachman, Mr. Beppo, he took 20 pence in fares. Quite right, I have those precise details typed neatly here in front of me. And juror number 5 also told us the following. The fare for the omnibus is always 4pence. It's one word. That is a fair and convenient single price. Just the way London's carriages should be operated. But that doesn't add up at all. In fact, it leaves a glaring discrepancy in the facts. Why, man? Why? 4 passengers paying 4pence each. If you do the multiplication, it would be 16 pence. Don't say it too fast. Give the kids at home who are watching my stream a chance to answer. Exactly. As I said, it doesn't add up. The figures are different. By 4pence, in fact. Or precisely one person's fare. One person's fare. Excuse me. 16pence. Yes. In other words, on the omnibus that night, it's distinctly possible there was another passenger we've heard nothing about. Good gracious! This can't be right. The coachmen of the guild are good, honest men, one and all. Trustworthiness is our watchword. The figures our coachman claims are most certainly do not add up. Your watchword, good sir, is a fallacy. I beg your pardon? Mr. Guildmaster, I think you ought to consider that if this trial were to end now, the news will surely spread all over London. The news that one of your coachmen tried to hide the fact that he lets nefarious characters ride his omnibus. Alright then, how do I make it so this miserable trial doesn't end, Well, according to my book here, you simply launch your ball of fire into the innocent side of the set of scales. Hold your horses there, coachman. We were all in agreement. Why do you have to go and... Wait till I get my hands on you, Beppo. Ugh, this is all very irritating. Begging your pardon, sir. I'm going to do the same. So are they firing double weight fireballs? Because it has to balance out, it has to remove their guilty vote and count as a not guilty vote. So hopefully they're being careful when they select the fireballs out of their fireball arsenal. For the love of Mike! Not you as well. A penny can be the difference between a smile and a tear, after all. I certainly can't put my trust in someone who doesn't follow my exacting standards in financial matters. Oh, really? I, for one, think it's only proper we hear from the witnesses again. Well done, Mr. Naruhodo, you did it! If we can manage to change 2 more jurors' minds, why 2 more? Why not 1 more? If it's 1 more, assuming they fire a double weight fireball, it'll be perfectly balanced, as all things should be. We can force the trial to continue. 2 more. Actually, there is something else that's bothering me about a couple of their assertions, and that's where you must strike next. So I need to pit 2 more jurors against each other and show there's a contradiction in their assertions. Exactly. You can do it. I know. Well, the scales of justice have shifted under the weight of their fireballs, but they still weigh heavy on the side of guilt. Counsel, you have the floor again. Continue with your summation examination. I'm changing my leaning to innocent. I should like to hear what the slipshod bookkeeper has to say for himself. Baffled, the trial has to continue so I can get to the bottom of this corruption.
Objection!
Those 2 statements are completely contradictory. What? Explain, counsel, post haste. Oh, dearie me. I was only knitting a jumper for my other half. What is all this claptrap? What does contradictory even mean, I ask you? We've heard from more than one witness that they allegedly saw the actual moment when the defendant stabbed the victim. Now, out of curiosity, juror number 3... Oh, can't you see I'm busy here? Wait, what's wrong with oh, because it's hyphenated? I'll allow it. How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim? What sort of motion was it? Oh, want to test me, do you? It was like this. Struck the fellow next to him without even getting up. Just like the prim banker said. Yes, that was Mr. Fairplay's testimony. Quite true. Now then, juror number 6. Oh, is that me? I can't count to 6. Well, let me help you. What can I do for you, young man? How would you say the defendant stabbed the victim, madam? Oh, well, dear, as far as I understand it, it was like this. He stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor. The coachman said so. Now, don't move! Take a look at these 2 jurors. He stuck the fellow next to him without even getting up. And he stabbed the poor man after he'd collapsed on the floor. Well, I never. They're stabbing in totally different directions. What? Bless my stitches, what a muddle. What this tells us is that there's a strong possibility one of the witnesses isn't telling the truth. Oh. But why? Why the dickens would they lie? Have they bollocks? I don't know that yet, but what I do know is that if the trial ends at this point, we may never find out. We may never know the real truth. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, can you really let that happen in all good conscience? Lies, you say? Oh, dearie me. Or it's telling us that the jurors don't pay attention. I can't abide people telling lies. The scales.
I don't believe it. Balance breaker.
Wait! Now hear this, my fellow jurors. I warn you, you cannot listen to this man. Look at him. In his black suit. He's clearly some devious Eastern sorcerer using magic on us all. If I could use magic, do you really think I'd be putting myself through all this? Answer me this, Dark Jinx. Me? What exactly is the problem? What of it if two witnesses have slightly different recollections of events? What of it? Let's say the Shylock did stab the victim as he was sat next to him on the omnibus, and this young dandy saw him do it. And now let's say the victim collapsed on the floor, and then the Shylock stabbed him again, and this old lady saw him do it. Well, what's to say it didn't happen like that, Who you calling a dandy, sir? Or I should take this knife to you. Who are you calling old? Why, I should take this needle to you. Jury fight! They're ready to kill each other now. But could the foreman of the jury be right? Did the two witnesses see two different moments of the same crime? Out of the question. I guess. Does the autopsy say he was only stabbed one? It's not an autopsy, it's a post-mortem report. Unfortunately, Mr. Foreman... What is it, you dark jinx? Come on, out with it. What you're suggesting is impossible. It's out of the question. What are you talking about, man? How can you possibly say that? You do realize that I'm only doing my job. As foreman of the jury, I have a responsibility to steer everyone in the right direction. So what's your evidence, man? That's what we want to see. I say the two witnesses saw two different moments of the same crime. If you say that's out of the question, show me some proof. Looks like the only way I'm going to convince him is to present him with something he can't dismiss. Irrefutable hard evidence. As you wish. What? I'll give you the proof. It's out of the question that the two witnesses saw two different moments of the same crime, as proven by... Stabbed once.
Take that!
This is the victim's autopsy report. According to what's written here, Mr. Mason was stabbed in the abdomen only once. Only once? It's quite simple. The victim was stabbed precisely one time. Which means these witnesses... He keeps saying it as if the jury were the witnesses who saw it. Which means these witnesses couldn't possibly have seen it happen two different times. Herg! Gerg! Gerg! Alright, I concede defeat. Wait, that means 4 jurors are now leaning to not guilty. We've done it, Mr. Naruhodo. We've won. Sort of. What are you playing at, you dandy fool? Shut your trap, sir. No one deceives me. But we had a consensus. I said shut your trap. I know a liar when I see one. If the trap ever dares to cross the threshold of my shop, take this razor-sharp blade and shave every last hair off his head. Please tell me he's a barber. Well, in a quite remarkable turn of events, the defense's summation examination has flipped the balance of the scales of justice. The jurors now stand at 2 for guilty and 4 for not guilty. Accordingly, there is no longer a large enough majority among the jury for me to adjudicate, and the trial must continue. So was Dracula not allowed to object during any of that? Because he was awfully quiet. I hereby ask the defense, prosecution, and witnesses to return to their places. And I call upon all of you to continue to pursue the truth. Raid in 20 minutes. And you guys are on P4. Oh, what was I gonna say? I forget. So, Lord Van Zeeks, continue to substantiate the case for the prosecution, if you please. Having savored the rich aroma of the carmine contents of this hollowed chalice, it may seem crass to crush it to dust. Pray forgive the discourtesy. Lord Van Zeeks! Is it cold in here? It's just me. As your antiquated tome no doubt says, the prosecution... Ah, ha, ha. What is it? I missed the... If he had thrown it, I would have got it right away. But Shub was on it. Even though he crushed it instead of throwing it. We still got there. As your antiquated tome no doubt says, the prosecution may not speak during a summation examination. So I honored the deathfully silent and listened to the charade. It seems I overestimated the intelligence of the jury. Bang. Well, no matter. There is nothing so hard to prove as a self-evident truth, it would seem. No. And why else would we grace the courtroom with our presence after all? So, let us proceed to round 2! Oh! The cape is off! Bring forth the witnesses once more. Look out, Serp! It's the knockback! He threw his cape to the side. He's going to knock you back from that side of the arena. Does he turn into a bat? I haven't gone and looked at what Savage looks like. Witnesses, I trust you heard the summation examination we have just had to endure.
Oh, yes, sir, that I did, sir.
Of course I heard it. Oh, yes, sir, I heard it.
You, sir, on the end, the coachman. I believe it's Beppo?
Yes, sir. My lord, sir.
If it transpires that in your previous testimony, you were attempting to veil the presence of a fifth passenger on your omnibus, you will be found guilty of perjury. You are advised to bear that in mind, sir.
Oh, you were talking about Castlevania Dracula. Okay. Which one is Circle of the Moon? I'm pretty sure I have not played it.
Oh, mio Dio.
Now then, witnesses, I hereby call I hereby call on you to testify before the court again. I would definitely never played any GBA Castlevanias. You will... Or have I? Was there a GBA Castlevania where you played as Richter and he controlled like kind of like he does in Symphony of the Night? Was that Dracula X? That's not Game Boy. That's Super Nintendo, maybe. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Too many Castlevanias. You explained the various misgivings brought to our attention by the defense's summation. I don't like this phrase, summation examination. It's hard to say. Plus, it's not even real. Is it? It could be. Who here is a British lawyer? Show of hands. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I went and gave you guys more emotes, everybody who's subbed, because I realized that I could. I actually have 5 emote slots. So you have all the emotes now. And I'm also going to put in an animated... That's what it was. Twitch said that everybody gets animated emotes now, like at least one. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll take that one and I'll make it into like an animated He-10 squish for whenever I play La Mulana. And that's the other thing I was going to mention, is that there was just a La Mulana 2 update today, where they put in some DLC of some kind. I only carried 4 passengers that night, I swear it, but well, I, for one, was told I had to pay 5 pence for the bus. One word. 5 pence. Fippence. Fippence! He fiddled us on the ferry, did, and then I saw that blood-curdling sight as well. It's all too much. I tell you, I saw McGilded stabbing that man. Everything I said before stands. Oh, yes. He stabbed him, he did. I think so, yes. Don't squish the thinking emoji. That's not fair. She was thinking. If you think and then get squished, it's not your fault. Council, make sense of this for me, please. The phantom 5th passenger, conjured into existence by my learned Eastern friend, never existed. The confusion has arisen from the coachman's sly little cousinage. Beppo, explain yourself. I'm terribly sorry, Guildmaster. The Guild's fare is 4pence across the board. You know that. Now you have a little thinking thinker. Am I to understand you've been overcharging our passengers by a penny a fare? It's so cold, and the last run of the day is always half empty. You have been dishonest, coachman. I'm sorry. You're a disgrace, Beppo, a disgrace. Your selfish actions have brought dishonor on the entire guild. If I may, sir, I had to pay 10pence on the bus just last week. What? 4 passengers at 5 pence apiece. 5 pence each is, yes, 20 pence. I've done the arithmetic 10 times already, but I just can't make the result come out differently. No, that figures. Well, it would appear that one of the aforementioned misgivings has already been explained. So, counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, if you please. We've already had the pleasure of a protracted summation examination today. I see you intend to continue the parlor games. Absolutely. Various misgivings. Hold it! Oh, the other thing I was gonna say, I do have a new chair. I got a chair at Staples. I didn't think it was going to be comfortable. Like the other chair that I dragged in because the chair from 3 chairs ago that I fortunately still had in the room. I'm like, oh, this isn't even that broken. Like, it's definitely broken, but it's not as broken as the other 2 chairs. And I'm like, oh, I forgot, this is very, like, cushiony. I'm like, oh, it's nice. And then when I went and got this, it's like a mesh chair. And I was like, oh, it's probably not going to be comfortable, but it actually is. And it actually does have, like, nice support. The headrest could be, like, 1 inch higher and it would be perfect, but this is fine. So there were only 4 passengers on your carriage, but you didn't charge them the standard 4pence fare. Is that right? At some point, we're probably going to have, like... There's going to be some point where somebody reacts. I have to not miss it. It's impossible to make the last run of the day pay. I was so cold, it was all I could do to stop myself passing out. Getting chilblains just listening to you. It was terrible. So I wanted to give myself a pat on the back for even keeping the bus running. Doesn't a dedicated coachman deserve an extra penny per passenger? Digging a deeper hole for yourself here. That's what I said. Like, he can be cold. Like, he can feel cold, but his breath isn't a different moisture. Let's move on. I don't know. If only there had been a fifth passenger on the omnibus that night, then we would have had another suspect. Time travel. Then we would have been going to have had another suspect.
Hold it!
Does that mean everyone on board that night paid 5 pence instead of 4? Well, I paid 5 pence too, sir. I just told you that I did. A flat fare of 5 pence across the board. Not something to be proud of. The so-called discrepancy my learned friend identified was nothing of the sort. Much like the phantom killer you so desperately needed, it's gone, dead and buried. I'm unhappy if it had ever existed in the first place. So is he going to, like, because I don't see anything to contradict, so I'm hoping that he, like, says something here. This blood-curdling sight. You mean the murder, I presume? Yes, sir. A loathsome sight. No one should have to witness the horror in the eyes of a man the moment his life is taken. Oh, well, not exactly, sir. I mean, I didn't actually see the exact moment the gent was stabbed. Good gracious, really? We have another witness who did, however. The banker has already testified to it. But Mr. First didn't actually see the point at which the victim was killed. That may turn out to be very significant. I heard the banker gent next to me take a sharp intake of breath. See, that's when I looked through the glass. That's when I saw that horrible blade poking out from his belly, all covered in blood. Every time I see a knife now, I can't help screaming, even when I'm eating.
Hold it!
Oh, this is case number 3 of, the first... Chronicles is 2 games. Ace Attorney... Nope, I don't remember the names, but Chronicles is 2 games packaged together, and this is the 3rd case of Game 1. So you saw the defendant, Mr. McGilded, stabbing the victim, Mr. Mason, who was sitting next to him. That's what I said, isn't it? It was bothering me before, this was. For just a brief moment, he hesitated before answering the question. Departure and resolve. Anyway, there was only 2 of them inside the cabbage, wasn't there? The carriage. Wasn't there? There has been too much talk of a 5th passenger, but as of yet, 0 evidence. What are we wasting all this time for, eh? It's black and white. The man's guilty. Something about Mr. Fairplay's testimony just jars with me. I wish I could work out what it was. If only I had a superpower, like a magic wristband that pulsed when I could see people were lying.
Hold it!
2 inside the cabbage. 1 inside the cabbage is plenty, 2 is a crowd. That's why they call it stuffed. Stuffed cabbage. Earlier, you testified that you saw the moment when the defendant allegedly stabbed the victim, didn't you? Oh, yes, that's right. You said that the victim was on the floor. See, I don't remember that. Did I forget to press on something? He said the victim was on the floor and described the assailant holding the knife in an ice pick grip. You'd think I would have remembered something like that. I suppose. I might have, yes. Put the cart before the horse, maybe. What's this? Well, I'm quite sure about most of it. I was driving the horses when I heard a scream from the seats on the roof deck. Oh, I expect that was me, sir. Then when I turned around, yes, I saw it through the skylight. The gentleman was on the floor, and the knife was sticking out. The gentleman was on the floor, and the knife was sticking up out of his midriff. And that's right, yes. And the fellow holding the handle was the famous man, yes. So, in short, you didn't see the moment when the victim was actually stabbed at all. I really thought I did, but when I go over it again in my head, no. I suppose I didn't actually see the precise moment of the wow! Pardon me?
Excuse me.
Excuse me, even. Yeah, I guess if we look at the thing, is the seat really high up? Let's look at how omnibuses are oriented. Yeah, I guess the driver... Yeah, the driver sits up here. He's basically on the roof. Checks out. Do you have something to say about that, Mr. Fairplay? Now you listen to me. I know what you're thinking. He didn't really see the exact moment the fellow was stabbed. What are the chances of that? Eh? Are you asking me or telling me? He's getting flustered. I may be able to extract some new information from him if I answer him cleverly. Could he have just happened to see the exact moment the crime was committed? Nuh-uh. It is a little hard to believe, certainly. Unless you spend your time peeping through a skylight on top of an omnibus, that is. Peeping! I'm a respectable city banker, I'll have you know. And I know what I saw. I remember it as clear as a Ballarat day. Ah, Ballarat days. They are the clearest. It was a grim scene, I don't mind telling you. Thank you, Mr. Fairplay. Oh, excuse me if I was getting a little hot under the collar there, my lord. I would ask you to supplement your testimony with a clear statement about what exactly you saw. Oh, I can do that all right. I'll tell you just how grim it was. Do you think I'd forget the sight of those blood-soaked hands? Multiple? 1, 2 hands. Is that what you're saying? Go ahead, say it. Say both hands were covered in blood. Well, perhaps soaked is laying it on a little thick, but anyway, there was definitely blood all over them. Both of them were covered in it. Guilty. And you saw that from the roof? Through the skylight? Ballarat is a city in Australia and a town in California. Well, it's got to be somewhere in London as well. Isn't there a city in London called Ballarat? Or is he going to turn out to be a secret Australian? Maybe that's it. The skylight's reasonably large, so I had a pretty good view. And there was a lamp on the inside of the carriage as well, so I'm quite sure of what I saw. This banker's latest statement. I feel sure there's something not quite right about it. When you feel something doesn't add up, Mr. Naruhodo, that's when you should have a good look through the court record. Not long ago, this trial very nearly came to an end. Somehow we've managed to keep our chances alive here. I can't waste this cross-examination. I have to use it to bring some new facts to light. If you're not careful when you press those witnesses, the danger is that the jury will end up believing something unhelpful, as they did before. I doubt it. Usually, Phoenix Wright games tell you if they're going to punish you for pressing. Although this would be a weird punishment to go, oh yeah, even though you have a hit point meter, for lack of a better word, do you also have a jury? No, I don't think so. I think when people switch, it's preordained for them to go like, oh, I'm switching. I'm gonna throw that fire. All right, Serp. Have fun in Castlevaniaville. Castlevania-Vania. Maybe, but we can't let the fear of that happening stop us from uncovering important new information. Wait, don't the servers go down in like 3 hours, I guess, is enough time to raid. Need to pay careful attention here. I don't want to miss even a flicker of a reaction among these witnesses. Remember, if you happen to spot one of the witnesses reacting in a strange... Yeah, obviously, I already did it. Clearly, madame.
Objection!
Gloves! Falcon gloves! Blood-soaked hands? Well, I admit soaked might be laying it on a little thick, but anyway, there was definitely blood all over them. Both of them were covered in it. Well, I'm very sorry to disagree, Mr. Fairplay, but that's more than a little peculiar. What? Here are the gloves worn by the defendant, Mr. McGilded, on the night in question. Oh, yes, right. And there certainly does appear to be a sizable dark-colored stain there. But as I'm sure you can clearly see, it's only on the right-hand glove. Arrgh! I must eat my cane. In short, Mr. Fairplay, your testimony is inconsistent. Gag! But, no, that can't be right. So you're the liar here, then. Garg! That's right, you were quite clear about it. You said it was both hands. Grrr! Mr. Fairplay, if your last statement was a lie, it calls your entire testimony into question. You say you saw the moment the victim was stabbed, but is that really the truth? Ugh!
Objection!
It was a simple mistake. You can't justify accusing this man of lying. Yes, it wasn't both hands, it was one hand. But the fact remains. The victim's blood was on the accused.
Objection!
No, Mr. Fairplay categorically stated that he saw blood all over both hands, which means there's a strong possibility that this witness was deliberately trying to mislead the court. Garg! Why? I'm a city banker, for pity's sakes. My word should be the gold standard. I'm a gentleman, not some NFT buyer. Upstanding members of society don't prevaricate. He's claiming to have no reason to lie. But is that really the case? Mr. Naruhodo, if we had some evidence to explain why Mr. Fairplay might be lying, it could turn the tide in this trial completely. Something to show this man has a compelling reason to lie in his testimony. I don't think I have any evidence. Is it his weapon? Is the M really a W for why don't you think it was me, Mr. Fairplay? Occasionally that is the correct answer, is to say, we don't have evidence of this. Oh wait, is his name going to be in here? I didn't even open this. This portfolio must contain all sorts of secrets of London's gentry. Oh dear, do you really think we ought to look inside? Well, it's not as though we know any of London's gentry personally, is it? Apart from our great detective friend, perhaps. Actually, I wonder. I assure you we will not find Mr. Sholmes' name inside. Well, let's see what we find. Wellity. I can't actually read any of this. Gosh, it's crammed full of gentlemen's names, isn't it? Well, I suppose they're probably not all gentlemen at all, are they? After all, anybody who borrows money is horrible. Ah, goodness! What is it? Look at this. Do you see the name here? Bruce Fairplay. Should that mean something to me? It does sound strangely familiar, actually. Bruce Fairplay, the witness testifying at this very moment. Yes, of course, the banker. Why is his name in here? He borrowed 20 guineas, did he? And look, the repayment date is fast approaching. It's possible that this is just a coincidence, of course, but this could be very useful information. Boogabam! Does he not have to pay him if he goes to... Oh, he's not going to jail. He's being hanged immediately in the courthouse on the fire scales. And presumably whoever inherits his business will not ask for the money back. My lord.
Yes, counsel?
The defense is ready to present evidence.
By Jove, are you sure?
Yes. Evidence that will clearly demonstrate why Mr. Fairplay had reason to lie in his testimony.
Garg!
We killed it at the scene of the crime, which happens to be here.
Very well. I hereby call on the defense to present its evidence. The evidence that demonstrates a motive for the witness's alleged deception of the court. It is the omnibus. Take that! And I throw the omnibus at him.
Take that!
This is a list of the debtors who owe Mr. McGill. I'm surprised that we didn't get a hint sooner from what's her name to say we'd better look at everything in the court record and open up any books that we find.
Yes, a list of innocent victims crippled by the accused extortion.
The point is, among the names of these debtors is your name, Mr. Bruce Fairplay.
Brant! What? Mr. Fairplay, are you currently indebted financially to the accused?
Arg! No, well, it's barely worthy of being called a debt. According to this ledger, you owe 20 guineas, not an inconsiderable sum of money, wouldn't you say? I had to afford this delicious cane somehow.
Arg!
Well, what of it? I've only just noticed I'm sitting so high now because of the chair that I'm, like, off the screen a little bit. Let's suppose Mr. McGilded were to be found guilty of murder. What would become of your debt in that case, he said, not knowing because he's not a British lawyer? He's like, I'm literally asking, I don't know how debts work in your society.
These documents state that the loan agreement is forged between two individual parties. Therefore, were the creditor, the defendant here, to be sentenced to a capital punishment, all outstanding debts which were owed to him would be annulled. They would cease to exist.
Cease to exist? Mr. Fairplay, is it not the case that you claimed in your testimony to have seen something you never in fact saw, in a devious attempt to annul your debt of 20 guineas to the defendant?
Gug! Garg! Order! Mr. Bruce Fairplay. Yes, my lord. Let me ask you again, and be aware that your answer may have most serious implications upon your future, sir. Grr! Did you or did you not see the precise moment in time at which the defendant is alleged to have thrust a knife into the victim?
Your silence speaks volumes. You did not tell the truth in your testimony.
All right. Let's not make a melodrama out of this.
Perhaps I did overstate the truth a pinch.
One pinch.
But it makes no difference. I definitely remember seeing blood on McGilded's hands. Both of them. And yet only one of the defendant's gloves, which we have here as evidence, is stained.
So you keep saying.
I wonder if I might be allowed to speak, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. First.
Well, the thing is, I think I remember seeing it myself as it happens.
Seeing what?
The blood, sir, on the assailant's hands. I think... Yes. I'm almost sure it was on both his hands, not just one.
What?
Why are we devastated? That's actually fantastic news. It's like, well, if the blood does not match, you must acquatch.
It would appear we're going to need further testimony from all you witnesses. This time, I would like to know precisely what you did and what you did not see. Do I make myself perfectly clear? Yargs. The gloves fit, but the blood doesn't match. So they must acquatch. Mr. Naruhodo, this is good news. The course of the trial seems to have shifted slightly at last. Yes! Might finally have a chance to turn things around here. There was blood on both hands of the assailant. I sincerely and distinctly remember that. However, suppose you might see that I didn't see the exact moment the stabbing transpired, if that matters. I remember seeing the knife, and I remember seeing both of the attacker's hands with blood on them. I didn't actually see anything myself. No, not until I heard that scream. Anyway, the fact remains there can't have been anyone else inside that carriage, or we all would have seen. Well, lo and behold, in truth of fact, not one of you was witness to the crucial moment the crime was perpetrated. I apologize, my lord, but honestly, arg! There was no one else inside that carriage, and the man's hands were covered in blood. Grr! That much incriminating evidence is tantamount to saying we saw the man do it. That's really not what testimony is about. Let us examine the interior of the omnibus once more. 1. The victim's fresh blood is clearly visible on the seat, corroborating the witness's account. In other words, there is no substantial nor significant change in the facts of the case. Very well. Your cross-examination, please, counsel. Yes, my lord. So let me jump forward a little bit. It's probably going to be the fifth statement, right? Oh, maybe we can get him to describe the knife. Maybe it's actually going to be a different knife. You definitely saw that too? Blood on both hands? Yes, sir. I mean, I know what you're going to say. Only one of Mr. McGilded's hands has any sign of blood on it. That's right. The thing is, as far as I remember, sir, when I looked down and saw Mr. McGilded sitting beside the other fellow, I don't believe he was wearing any gloves, sir. He wasn't wearing these gloves? That's correct, sir, and I saw the blood on both his bare hands quite clearly. It's true that the dark-colored stain on the dark leather gloves wouldn't have been easy to see. I should point out that the police officer who apprehended the accused on the night in question reported that there was no trace of blood on Mr. McGilded's gloved hands. There wasn't blood on his hands. This is puzzling indeed. This must be significant somehow, I'm sure of it. And everything you saw of the incident was through the skylight on the roof of the omnibus. That's right, it was fiercely cold that night, but the glass wasn't frosted over. Oh yes, I remember I was shivering, it was so bitter. Which rather begs the question of why the pair of you were sitting on the roof deck in the first place. Well, I don't know about this young fellow, but I couldn't enter the cabin. Oh? Why not? It was locked from the inside. I tried knocking, but no one opened the door. It was locked? That's right, and it's a public bus service, for pity's sake. That's not what I call fair play. Yes, I had exactly the same experience. I tried knocking, but the gent inside just gestured at me to clear off. So I had no choice but to climb up to the roof deck and look down longingly into the warm cabin below. Well, I can assure you I wasn't just looking down. I was glaring long and hard. That's precisely why I can tell you with absolute confidence. If
there was anyone else at all in that cabin, I would have noticed.
Unequivocal, I would say.
I'm not sure about these two witnesses. Could they really have seen everything inside the cabin through the skylight? They might not have been able to. Allow me to confirm one thing, Mr. Fairplay. You were riding this omnibus and witnessed the events in the cabin through the skylight in the floor of the upper deck. Is that right? I guess you can only see half of the cabin since it's in the middle. You would only see the people that were on the opposite side from where you were sitting. That's right, yes. And in that case, there's a portion of the cabin interior that would have been out of sight from you. What? By golly, really? Obviously, at this stage, we can't say for sure. But the possibility cannot be denied that at the time of the incident, there could have been another passenger in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus.
Objection!
Enough hypothetical meandering, my Nipponese friend. The prosecution demands that you substantiate your claims. After all, the scene of the crime is here, in the flesh, a live gazebo.
Very well, I will uphold the prosecution's demand. Well, I mean, if were they... have they said which seat they were sitting in? They must have been in this seat if they were sitting forward, so it's just, you know, over here. Hereabouts.
Take that!
Both rows of seats on the roof face in the direction of travel, whereas the seats in the enclosed cabin face each other, which means the visible part of the cabin, which passengers on the roof deck can see through the skylight, is as I've drawn here. Ah! That's right, my lord. As you can see, the seat opposite the one on which the victim and his attacker were sitting is obscured from view. In other words, if someone had been sitting on that seat, it's quite possible that these witnesses would have been completely unaware of it. Garg!
Objection!
It's quite possible some phantom was sitting there. You Nipponese have a forbidding habit of obscuring the truth with ambiguity.
I kind of really want to, you know, see the Japanese version of this now. Does he condescendingly refer to the fact that Naruhodo is Japanese in the Japanese version as well, or is it actually a product of the localization? What is with all the racism? I don't know. I guess it's just that they had been holding back the whole time by having all of the Phoenix Wright universe happen in America, and now that they're finally like, no, this one he actually is Japanese. They're like, oh my god, we've been waiting to like have social commentary about nationalism, racism the whole time? I don't know. Maybe it's actually been in all the Phoenix Wright games, and we just didn't know until now. I concur. Well, I guess they're also. This is not the first time, but it's one of the first times that they've sat here and said, like, here's the Japanese law system, which the game was originally, like, created to lampoon. Or not lampoon, but kind of, like, make some kind of commentary on the Japanese justice system. And that there's been at least one other game, maybe two other games, where they've gone, this time you're in a court system that is not Japanese, and look how it's different in some way. And I guess they're just really playing it up in this one by saying, hey, this is a British court instead of a Japanese court, and along with that, they were like, let's also draw attention to other things. I concur with the prosecution's rejoinder. In a British court of law, evidence is paramount. I cannot entertain this conjecture, counsel. That is, unless you're able to put a name to this mysterious passenger to whom you allude. Can you, Mr. Naruhodo? I honestly don't know. Who could it have been? Who could have been in the other seat, which was out of sight from the witnesses on the roof deck? Have I met anyone in London yet? It was you! It was the Lord Chief Justice. I mean, it actually was, but I don't know. I'll say I have no idea. I have literally no idea. But as a proud citizen of the Japanese Empire, gotta bring that up again, you will look to the sky and walk on, Shadowbringers, Endwalker, making sure all signs of tears are gone. Go on! This isn't just a case of going on, Mr. Sato. Alright then, I'll go on. The defense would like to put forward a name. You are a fool, and you had an extra cup that you were not telling us about. What other secrets are you hiding? Count von Zeeks, if that is your real name? That response was a desperate attempt by a man who has no notion of his own limitations. A toast to hard lessons not yet learned. Kampai! Let us not delay, Counsel. The defense is still to name the passenger in the other seat. This could be it. This could be the chance I've been waiting for to turn the trial in my favor. On that night, on the night of the murder, the person occupying the seat in the omnibus cabin that was obscured from view was... Or, oh, I guess it's... I'm gonna... Like... Am I gonna say that it's my guy was over there? And so there was a fifth guy doing the stabbing? It's either that or I say for no reason. But no, I guess, yeah, I guess this is what they want. If they're like, hey, we saw a guy stab another guy, it will be like, okay, my guy was hidden. Okay, that does make some sense. Okay. The passenger in the enclosed cabin that the witnesses on the roof deck failed to see has to have been Mr. Magnus McGilded. Mr. McGilded? What are you talking about, Counsel? That's the name of the defendant.
Objection!
Miserable pile of exploding candles. He filled the glass just to immediately throw it. It's like when somebody knows that they want to do a spit take, so they like immediately fill up a cup and start drinking from it. If I desecrate this chamber by smashing my hollowed chalice, do forgive the discourtesy. Lord Van Zeeks. People talk of those tiny island nations in the Far East as having a learning and culture of their own, but I see they use the terms ill-advisedly. What are you trying to say? Let me explain. In terms that even a student of an artless backwater country full of people who are all terrible and bad and dumb, and I only have bad things to say about them. When the bloody scene unfolded, the victim and his assailant were sitting side by side. Multiple witnesses have attested to the fact. It's the very premise on which this case is built.
Objection!
Okay, it was a wrong-ass premise. There you go. There it is. But that premise may be wrong. What? If the victim really was sitting beside Mr. McGilded, It creates an inconsistency that can't be reconciled in any way.
What inconsistency, counsel?
The defendant's gloves, my lord. Both witnesses made the same testimony. They claimed that there was blood on both hands of the person sitting next to the victim.
Yet we know the truth to be otherwise. Only one glove bears the gory remains.
The point is, even in the face of this irrefutable evidence, both witnesses have maintained their stance.
Yes, their testimonies remain unchanged.
Exactly. They both adamantly swear that they clearly remember seeing blood on both hands of the assailant. In short, their memory of events is correct, and their testimony reveals the truth. It was somebody else sitting beside the victim that night, a third party we have yet to identify, and the victim's blood was on that passenger's hands, both of them.
Objection!
And who was this third party?
Obviously, the true culprit.
Extraordinary, just like a strawberry.
Here come the hot stepper.
Or what exactly are you postulating?
Objection!
The defense's postulation is just that, nothing more than conjecture. The witnesses have clearly stated that they saw the accused.
Did they? But when elaborating on his testimony, Mr. Fairplay said the two of them were wearing hats, and I couldn't exactly make out their faces.
Yes.
The tops of their heads were obscured by the roof. I could see the rest of them, though. Yes, that's right. Both gents were most certainly hatted. Chief Wiggum, put an APB on a blue car. Suspect is hatless. I repeat, hatless. Hatters do tend to notice such things, sir. Granted.
And what particular styles of hat did the two gentlemen sport, Mr. First?
I'm afraid I don't remember. You call yourself a hatter?
The style of hat makes no difference. There was no third passenger in that cabin.
How can you be sure?
Because if there had been, the accused, Mr. McGilded, would undoubtedly have offered to depose the fact. Unless, that is, you are proposing an even more preposterous explanation. That the accused failed even to notice the presence of the true culprit in the very cabin in which he traveled.
Ah! He didn't notice anything. He said he was asleep. He's right. If there was another person traveling in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus, it's inconceivable that Mr. McGilded would have been unaware of it. He has a robot eye, so even while he's unconscious, he sees everything that goes on around him.
There is clearly a simple solution to this problem. Bring the accused, Mr. McGilded, to the stand. Well, what say you, counsel? The prosecution objects, my lord.
It's not your witness. Like, what do you mean he can't take the stand? What is he trying to pull? I object to the defendant being able to testify.
On what grounds?
Okay.
As a suspect, he will have already made a full statement to the police.
What if there's some reason why he's unable to speak freely?
Magnus McGilded is no uneducated ruffian. If it indeed turns out the man has been withholding information, you can be sure it will have been a most deliberate act.
The defendant is a witch, and will use magic to fool us. Now you're speaking with court.
Counsel for the defense, what is your opinion?
My lord, should we ask Mr. McGilded to testify? Yeah. Yes, we need to hear what he has to say in order to find out the truth. The defense would like to call Mr. McGilded to the stand.
In that case, I would like to hear the opinion of the jury.
That's not how any of this works. The jury is just like, do you guys think he should be allowed to? Should be allowed? This guy objected. I don't know whether to overrule or sustain the objection. Jury, your opinion, your legal matter, your legal opinions.
I need more time. I need a little time to consider this.
If you ask me, I think we should hear what Mr. McGilded has to say. This guy is still not done getting the knife out. He got it stuck in there properly.
Get the man out here, I say.
It would be utterly illogical not to hear his testimony.
When something needs doing, get it done. That's how I run things at the guild.
Hearing what the patron of my favorite little park has to say? Oh yes, that would be lovely.
Yes, the jury says the man must be heard. Very well. The court will now hear the defendant's testimony. Bailiff, show the defendant to the stand at once.
Did I already give someone that voice? I guess I did. Ah! Pulling the sword from the stone. I didn't think they had a king. I thought they were an autonomous collective. Now, maybe what actually happened that night will finally become clear.
Let proceedings be resumed. Mr. McGilded, have you been listening to the discourse of the day?
Oh, to be sure I have, my lord.
There are now two matters on which the court
It's been a long stream.
There are now two matters on which the court desires to hear from you. The first is whether or not there was a third party with you in the omnibus cabin as proposed by the defense. The second is that if such a person was indeed present, why did you conceal that fact from the police?
Oh, begad, no. It is not my nature to hide anything at all. Just answer the questions, please. The truth of the matter is, I've been desperate about this all along. Do I tell you all or keep my mouth shut? Tell us what, Mr. McGilded? The fine fellow representing me is absolutely right. In the carriage on the night with myself and the other man, there was another passenger.
It's true?
Aye, 'twas me who helped the little urchin get away after it all happened. You...
What?
No, Magnus McGilded, that convenient excuse can't save you now. I'm truly sorry I am, Count Von Zeeks. I'm sure you'll be wanting to know why I said nothing when I was taken in by the police. I do be having a very good reason, I assure you.
Which was?
Well, the little child was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and not in any way involved, you see.
What?
If the police had known the wee one was there, they'd have assumed she'd done it. They'd have hauled her here into this courtroom just like myself. As soon as, word one came out of his mouth, and I was like, I can't do an Irish, you know, because you know my real name. If you go and read the Geneva Convention, there's a thing in there that's like, this person so-and-so is not allowed to do an Irish accent, or else it's a war crime. So I can't do an Irish accent. Just in case someone from Ireland was watching, and then World War III starts. So I made him from California. But yeah, it is weird that they're throwing in a lot of use guys.
I was only trying to spare her that. Young hearts and young minds are easily damaged, my lord. And who was this young child of whom you speak? That I don't know. You don't know? Yeah, well, the wee thing just happened to be in the carriage that night. I never saw her before or since.
Objection!
Her? The young girl, apparently. Although I don't think we think that a small child murdered this guy.
We have absolutely no reason to believe this man. The prosecution calls for the witnesses' statements to be disregarded by the court. I wouldn't be surprised if the urchin isn't here in this courtroom as we speak. Listen to the proceedings.
What? Oh. What? What's going on? Be careful, Mr. Naruhodo. Cover your face. Bailiff, don't let the accused escape. Secure the omnibus.
I hereby call an emergency recess.
It's not a ninja. This is a British court. They only have ninjas in Japanese courts. Have you been paying any attention? Did you even read the first word of the British law book?
Bailiff, ensure the defendant is in custody and clear the courtroom.
We were hurriedly removed from the smoke-filled courtroom by the bailiff, amid scenes of chaos as people stumbled over one another in their desperation to flee the chamber. We brought a getaway vehicle into the courtroom, of course. They're gonna take they smuggled 2 horses in their pockets, and they just hook those up to the omnibus and take off. We had no idea what was happening. All we knew was that for the time being, at least, the trial was suspended. Wow, that's an exciting end to day 1 of the court. All right, so this has been great, and I'm looking forward to knowing what the heck else happens here. We're still in the trial, apparently. There might not be an investigation. It might just be the whole chapter is all just trial. It could happen. But that's going to be it for today, and tomorrow I'll be starting a Monsters Expedition, which is some manner of puzzle game, with less talking so I can rest my voice. Well, I don't know that for sure. It could be a very, very talk-heavy puzzle game. We'll find out. But thanks for being here, and I do hope you enjoyed. And like I said, we'll be streaming something else tomorrow, and then return to Ace Attorney on Thursday. So, hope to see you then. Have a great night.